Hey everybody, I'm Tara with Earth Tantra, and I'm going to show you how I make my smudge sticks. And I'm excited to bring this technique to you because this is something that you can do at your house, and it's super easy and it's a lot of fun. And wrapping smudge sticks is something that I really enjoy. It's something that's dear to my heart. I love working with Mother Earth. I love working with the plants. Before I pick a plant, I always ask, do you want to be taken? Do you want to be shared with somebody else? And sometimes the most beautiful plants where I'm like, oh, this would look so great in a smudge stick, gives me a no. And sometimes a whole lot of them give me a no. So I just want to pass that practice on to you as well. It's a really beautiful practice in asking consent, asking permission before we take something from Mother Earth. And so I really invite you to begin to use this practice in your life if you have not already. So let's get started, and I'm going to show you the plants that I picked for today. We're going to keep this smudge stick wrapping pretty simple. I have some juniper, which is really good for protection, grounding, energy clearing. There's many uses for juniper, but that is going to be the intention for these sticks. And I also have some mullein. This is my favorite. I love mullein. It's probably my favorite wild plant that I love working with in many different ways. Mullein is used in a lot of breath tea. It was really popular at the beginning of COVID as one of those herbs to help with lung support, respiratory support. The intention for these smudge sticks is a grounding and clearing energy. And I also love the way that these large leaves burn, and I like to put them in the center of smudge sticks. And I love that mullein is a very grounding plant, just like the juniper, and it's energy clearing as well as emotional clearing. So I think this is a really important plant to bring into our house. And so the last plant that we're going to work with are it is a high sage, a high desert sage, high mountain sage, and this is sage wort. So it doesn't grow in the bushes like a desert sage would, and the leaves are very small. It's a really abundant plant up here this time of the year in August, and it's bountiful. And as we know, sage is great for energy clearing as well as clarity and strengthening. So we're going to weave this into our smudge sticks as well. All right, let's get started. So one of the things that I like to do is to first cut my string, and I use organic hemp. It has been dyed in natural dye. I think that organic hemp is a really beautiful material to use, especially when we're burning and we are inhaling the smudge. And I like mine just to be about 2 arm lengths long, and then maybe a little extra. And so I've cut it in half, or I've cut it, and now I'm going to put the 2 loose ends together and bring it in half. And then I'll show you why in just a minute. Okay, so here are the supplies. We have the juniper right here, the mullein leaves, and the sage. I like to put the mullein in the middle, and so I'm going to pick out 2 different size leaves. I think I'm going to use a big leaf and then a small leaf right here, and so you can see that they kind of wrap into each other. And I'm going to place these to the side. And what I like to do first is I like to roll them nice and tightly, and that's going to be the center of the smudge stick. And when this burns, it burns really well. I love to use mullein, especially in the center. And then I'm going to take some of the sage, and we're going to put that on one side. So we have it on one side. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this juniper and then put it on the other side. So we have one side of sage and one side of juniper. And then I'm going to take a little more sage, right? You can almost never have enough sage, and cover that with a juniper. I like my smudge sticks pretty thick. I think they seem to burn a lot better when they're a nice thickness. And they also tend to, when they dry out, shrivel a little bit. So it's okay to make them a little bit on the thicker side. So I'm going to put all of my supplies to the side here so you can see how I'm working this bundle. And so this bundle and this combination specifically is going to be yellow. So I like to color code my smudge sticks, especially for when I sell them in the store. It gives a nice organization for when I'm selling and what I know I'm selling. And so what I like to do is I like to take the loop. You don't have to do it this way, but this gives it a nice tightness at the bottom of your smudge stick. So I like to put the loop around and then bring the two loose ends around it. So you just kind of hitch it right here. And then when you pull it tight, you don't want it so tight that you're going to be breaking the plants underneath, but you want it tight enough to where everything is close together. Because if you know, the three components of fire is heat, which would be your lighter or your candle to light the smudge stick. Fuel, which is all of the plants in the middle, and you want to have your fuel pretty close and tight together, and oxygen. So you don't want them too close together because then it won't get enough oxygen. But again, when these plants are bundled and when they dry, little tiny pieces will open up in there as the plants shrivel, and so the oxygen can get to them. So heat, fuel, and oxygen. So as you are wrapping your smudge stick, you want to keep that in mind. You don't want it too loose where the heat doesn't get to the fuel. You don't want it too tight where there isn't enough oxygen. So I do a nice firm tightness, just a little yank on it. And so I split these two in half and I wrap one around about 2 to 3 times. And then the other one, so this other loose one that I have not wrapped yet, we want to wrap in the opposite direction. So that one was toward me, so this one is going to be away from me. And I like to try and, fill in the little holes, the gaps, so it has a nice wrap around it. And sometimes I forget to count and one side might end up being a little bit longer than the other, and that's okay. And so I like to tie the base 2 times in a knot. When my smudge sticks burn, they might burn just a little bit above and then I'm finished with them. But it's nice to have something solid to hold on to at the base. Some people will burn them all the way through, but that's up to you. So now we have our knot. I personally like to use the crisscross method, and I'll show you that method here. And so we're going to flip it over and we're going to crisscross up. So you see that crisscross. I'm going to crisscross it up, and then we're going to crisscross one more time. And so I'm going to use the side with the knot as my backing side. And that guy just kind of came out, so we're going to readjust him. I say him because juniper holds more of a masculine energy than feminine. So I crisscrossed again along the rib. So now on the back side, what I like to do is I like to tie a knot, even 2 sometimes, just depending on what I'm feeling intuitively. So every other crisscross is a knot or a double knot. I think this one I'm going to do twice. And then I just kind of keep my finger there. After you make many of these, it becomes much easier to work with your fingers and the plants combined together as one. And when I crisscross, I leave a good gap in between each one, if you can see that. So I don't put them very close together. If they're too close together and too tight, then the oxygen is not going to get to them. So I like to make mine about a good knuckle, on my finger at least, knuckle space in between the two. And as I'm wrapping them, I'm not squeezing them super, super hard, but I'm giving it a nice little tug. And I really like that because that keeps everything together. So I'm on my every other right now. So I'm going to tie this one, and I think I'm only going to do one knot. As it dries in place, and sometimes the knots don't come undone. And I like to do this method because you can spiral them up, which is really a lot faster and uses less material as far as the twine goes. But sometimes as you're burning, one side will start to unravel, and it all unravels, and then you've lost your smudge stick. And what I like to do, I like to keep my ends raw. I don't like to cut them off and waste supplies. Some people will use the tops for loose smudging and collect them, which I do, but with other things. And I'm gonna tie these ones in place, and then I'm gonna go back up. I like a nice like raw smudge stick. I don't like them to look like they've been factory made. I mean, you can buy factory made wrapped smudge sticks anywhere, online or at the store. And then at the very, very top, I like to do 2 knots. And as you can see, I do have a little bit of hemp string left over, and I do cut that off. You don't have to if you don't want, but I do just to tidy it up a little bit. And I absolutely love that there's little pieces sticking out. I think it really adds to the smudge stick, and I think it comes out very beautiful, natural, and raw looking. And now I've moved out of the sun because it was getting really hot and I'm in the shade. Feels so much better. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really appreciate you and following this video all the way through. I also invite you to subscribe or follow the Earth Tantra YouTube channel. And if for some reason you don't have the time or access to plants to make smudge sticks, I encourage you to support Earth Tantra and purchase some of our smudge sticks, and I will include that smudge stick shopping link below. And I also invite you to share below in the comment section what plants do you like to see in smudge sticks. Thank you again so much, and if you have any questions, please also share those below in the comment section.